It was supposed to be another lively and entertaining morning on The View, where opinions often clash, and conversations occasionally turn fiery. But no one, not the hosts, not the audience in the studio, and certainly not the millions of viewers tuning in at home, could have predicted the sheer level of tension that would unfold during this particular episode. Harrison Ford, the legendary actor celebrated for his roles as Han Solo and Indiana Jones, was the special guest for the day, invited to discuss his latest film, his views on current events, and to share anecdotes from his storied career. As he took his seat at the round table, next to Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Haas, and Sarah N., the energy in the room was electric with anticipation. Ford, known for his rugged charm and typically cool demeanor, greeted the hosts with a warm smile and a courteous nod, clearly ready for what he assumed would be a spirited but respectful dialogue. However, from the very first moments, there was an undercurrent that hinted at what was to come, a subtle tension that would soon erupt into a verbal clash, so heated that it would leave the entire set of The View reeling. As the conversation began, the hosts asked Harrison about his new film, and the actor answered with his usual grace, offering thoughtful insights into the filmmaking process, his preparation for the physically demanding role, and his excitement about returning to a beloved franchise. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause, clearly thrilled to see such an iconic star sharing his experiences. But when Joy Behar shifted the topic toward politics, a subject that, while often discussed on The View, has been known to ignite intense debates, the mood in the studio began to shift. Joy, with her signature blend of wit and bluntness, questioned Ford about his stance on certain environmental policies. Referencing his history of activism, she pressed him on recent legislation that had sparked national debate, asking pointed questions about whether he believed Hollywood figures like himself should have a platform to influence political discourse. Ford, ever the professional, tried to navigate the conversation diplomatically at first, acknowledging the complexity of the issues while defending his right, as a citizen, to express his views. Yet, the more he spoke, the more it seemed to fuel Joy's determination to challenge him further. The dialogue grew increasingly charged, with Joy interrupting Ford mid-sentence on several occasions, eager to counter his points with her own passionate opinions. The two began to talk over each other, their voices rising as the exchange became less of a conversation and more of a battle of wills. Harrison's calm exterior began to crack ever so slightly. His tone grew sharper, his responses more clipped. The tension was palpable, as if the entire room was holding its collective breath, unsure of how this confrontation would end. The other hosts, sensing the growing discomfort, attempted to intervene, Whoopi raising her hand to mediate, Sarah trying to redirect the conversation, and Sunny offering a diplomatic interjection to ease the mood. But their efforts were in vain. The clash between Ford and Behar had taken on a momentum of its own, spiraling beyond what anyone on set could control. As the argument escalated, Joy accused Harrison of hypocrisy, pointing to what she described as the contradictions between his advocacy for environmental causes and his lifestyle as a global celebrity, who frequently travels by private jet. The audience gasped, the air thick with shock at the bluntness of the remark. Harrison's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as he struggled to maintain composure. He responded with force, his voice carrying a steely edge that few had ever heard from him on live television. He defended his choices, explaining the efforts he made in his personal and professional life to offset his carbon footprint, and called out what he saw as unfair character attacks that distracted from meaningful dialogue on real solutions. The audience, now riveted by the fiery back, watched in stunned silence as the verbal duel continued. The energy in the room had shifted from excitement to unease, with even the production crew behind the cameras exchanging worried glances. Ford's frustration became more evident with each passing moment. His usual restraint was giving way to visible exasperation, his hands gesturing more emphatically, his voice growing louder. Joy, for her part, remained steadfast, matching his intensity with her own brand of pointed commentary. She refused to back down, challenging him on point after point, questioning the sincerity of Hollywood's commitment to social causes, and pushing him to account for what she described as the contradictions between celebrity, activism, and real-world impact. Harrison, his patience wearing thin, attempted to steer the conversation back to the issues at hand, but every effort was met with another pointed remark, another interruption, another challenge that kept the flames of the argument burning ever brighter. The other hosts, increasingly alarmed, tried once more to step in, to restore some semblance of order, but the moment had taken on a life of its own. It was at this point that Ford's demeanor shifted dramatically. His eyes, once filled with the warmth and charm that audiences had known and loved for decades, now burned with the intensity of someone pushed to the edge. His voice, once measured and calm, rose in volume and force, cutting through the tension in the studio like a blade. He called out what he perceived as the toxic nature of the exchange, condemning the conversation as unproductive and emblematic of the deeper divisions tearing at the fabric of public discourse. His words carried weight, delivered with the conviction of someone who had long observed the corrosive effects of polarized debates. But instead of diffusing the situation, his statement seemed to add fuel to the fire. Joy, unwilling to yield, fired back with yet another pointed critique, challenging his moral authority and questioning the legitimacy of celebrity voices in serious political matters. The two now stood at rhetorical loggerheads, their clash dominating the set, leaving little room for anyone else to speak. The studio audience, caught between admiration for Harrison, Ford's passion and discomfort at the intensity of the argument, reacted with a mix of applause, gasps, and murmurs. Some viewers seemed to side with Ford, appreciating his candor and frustration at the tone of the debate. Others appeared to support Joy, valuing her willingness to hold powerful figures accountable. The atmosphere crackled with the electricity of live television at its most unpredictable, raw, unscripted, and utterly compelling. The production team scrambled behind the scenes, debating whether to cut to a commercial, as the segment had veered so far off course that it threatened to overshadow the rest of the show. But before any such decision could be made, the confrontation reached its climax. Harrison, visibly fed up, pushed back from the table, his chair scraping against the floor with a sharp, jarring sound that echoed through the studio. He rose to his feet, towering over the table, his expression one of barely contained anger. The other hosts fell silent, their eyes wide with shock, as Ford delivered a final, scathing remark about the state of discourse in modern media, a lament for how genuine conversations were too often reduced to combative soundbites designed to generate headlines rather than understanding. His voice, though firm, carried an unmistakable note of sadness, as if disappointed not just by the encounter, but by what it represented about the broader cultural moment. The studio fell into a heavy silence, the weight of the moment hanging over everyone present. Joy, perhaps realizing that the situation had gone too far, sat back in her chair, her expression a mixture of defiance and regret. Ford, with one final glance around the table, turned on his heel and began walking off the set, his strides purposeful and unyielding. The cameras followed him as far as they could, capturing the surreal sight of a Hollywood legend storming off a daytime talk show, leaving behind a stunned panel and an audience unsure of what they had just witnessed. The director, finally snapping out of his shock, called for a commercial break, and the screen faded to black. The words "will be right back" flashing across the screen as the stunned production team scrambled to regroup. When the show returned, the mood was markedly different. The hosts, still processing what had transpired, tried to carry on with the next segment, but the weight of the confrontation lingered. Joy offered a brief, somewhat awkward reflection on the importance of passionate dialogue, while Whoopi did her best to smooth over the tension with a mix of humor and perspective. Yet, it was clear to everyone that the morning's events would be remembered for a long time to come. In the days that followed, clips of the dramatic showdown flooded social media, garnering millions of views and sparking heated debates of their own. Fans and critics alike weighed in, dissecting every word, every gesture, every nuance of the exchange. Some hailed Ford for standing up for what he believed in, for refusing to be drawn into a hostile debate without pushing back. Others praised Joy for her determination to challenge power and privilege, for refusing to let a celebrity guest off the hook simply because of his fame. News outlets ran endless analyses of the encounter, with pundits on all sides using it as a springboard for broader discussions about media, politics, and the role of celebrities in shaping public opinion. The View's ratings, unsurprisingly, saw a spike as curious viewers tuned in to see what might happen next, and whether any further fallout would emerge. Ford, for his part, remained largely silent in the immediate aftermath. A brief statement from his publicist emphasized his respect for free speech and his regret that the conversation had devolved into confrontation rather than constructive dialogue. But the actor himself refrained from further comment, choosing instead to let his actions on the day speak for themselves. Industry insiders speculated about whether the incident would affect his promotional efforts for his film, but if anything, it seemed to only heighten interest, with audiences eager to see the man behind the headlines. The hosts of The View also took time to reflect on the encounter in subsequent episodes, acknowledging the passion that drives their conversations while expressing hope for more respectful exchanges in the future. The moment became a touchstone for discussions about how talk shows balance entertainment with serious dialogue, and where the line between spirited debate and destructive argument truly lies. Even as the headlines faded and the media cycle moved on, the memory of Harrison Ford's dramatic exit from The View lingered. It served as a reminder of the volatility that can arise when deeply held beliefs collide in public forums, and of the challenges that come with trying to bridge divides in an increasingly polarized world. Fans of the show, and of Ford himself, continued to debate the incident in online forums and around water coolers, each bringing their own perspectives to the table. Some saw it as a necessary confrontation, a moment of honesty in a media landscape too often dominated by superficial pleasantries. Others viewed it as a missed opportunity, a conversation that could have fostered understanding but instead deepened divides. Whatever the interpretation, one thing was clear: the moment had struck a chord, capturing the complexities of modern discourse in a single, unforgettable live broadcast. And as for Harrison Ford, the veteran actor continued on with his promotional tour, appearing on other shows and at red carpet events, his charisma undiminished, his legacy intact. He answered questions about the film, about his career, about his passion for flying, and his love of the environment. But whenever the topic of The View came up, he chose his words carefully, offering reflections that spoke to his hope for more meaningful conversations in the future. The incident, far from tarnishing his reputation, seemed to add another layer to the public's understanding of him. A man unafraid to stand his ground, even in the most challenging of circumstances. And for Joy Behar and the rest of the panel, the day served as a reminder of the power and the responsibility that comes with giving voice to difficult topics in a public forum. In the end, the fiery showdown between Harrison Ford and Joy Behar became more than just a viral moment. It became a case study in the dynamics of modern media, a symbol of the tensions that define so many public conversations today. It highlighted the challenges of balancing entertainment and substance, of engaging in dialogue without descending into discord, and it left viewers with much to ponder about how we talk to one another, how we listen, and how we can strive to build bridges even in the most heated of moments. The incident may have begun as a clash between two strong personalities on a popular talk show, but its impact resonated far beyond the walls of that studio, sparking reflection, debate, and, perhaps, a renewed commitment to the art of true conversation.